Hi, this is the Film Mania channel, and this is the movie Civil War. It's the not-too-distant future, and civil war is raging in the United States. 4 journalists travel to a blazing Washington, D.C. to interview the president one last time before he is executed by rebels. The movie begins with the President of the United States of America addressing the nation. The president claims that the Civil War started by the opposition in California, and Texas is almost over, and that the rebels have been defeated. Photojournalist Smith watches all this from his hotel room. Outside, the window spreads New York City, which is also engulfed in explosions. The shot shifts to the moment when Smith goes to a humanitarian aid station, where the number of people in need outnumbers the provisions allocated by the state. A woman wears a brightly colored vest labeled "Press" for visibility, and begins photographing the scuffle. Smith sees Jesse's young co-worker, who is too close to the fight, and pulls the girl away from the crowd. After handing her the press vest, she spots a suicide bomber running into the crowd and pushes Jesse to the ground before an explosion goes off. Without wasting a moment, Smith grabs his camera to take the first pictures of the victims. As he leaves, Jesse turns around and takes a few photos of his idol at work. Later, Smith meets up at the hotel with fellow matronly journalists Joel and Sammy. Sammy is convinced that after the fall of Washington, the feuding states will go to war with each other. However, he learns that Smith and Joel plan to go to Washington to interview the president before the secessionists get to him and ask to go with them. Leaving for her room, the woman meets Jesse, who thanks her for her help. As she takes a bath, she recalls the many acts of human cruelty she has witnessed. The next shot begins with sunlight and the anticipation of a long drive. Smith sees young Jesse in the car, which she is extremely unhappy about. However, Joel assures her that this is the only way she can gain experience and become a real journalist. It's 857 miles to Washington. The journey begins. The journalists take a highway littered with abandoned cars, borrowing a shot from The Walking Dead. After comes a military roadblock, passing it at the same time as refugees who are driving away from the epicenter of events. Smith offers to refill the tank when he sees another gas station. It has already been privatized by armed civilians who sell gasoline at 3 times the normal price. Because of the long drive, Jesse gets out to stretch her legs and walks towards the car wash. She is followed by the guy with the machine gun and then Smith. He brags about the bodies hanging in the middle of the sink, citing that this is what you should do to looters. He suggests that Jesse shoot one of them right in front of her. Unwilling to face this, Smith changes the subject, offering to take a photo. Out of pride and greatness for himself, the guy poses between the victims. Later in the car, Jesse is perplexed as to how they can be so cruel and why she was confused at that moment. Smith advises not to take these situations personally. No matter what they do, there is no way they can affect it. As they drive through a parking lot full of destroyed military vehicles, Smith asks them to slow down. She calls the girl over to the crashed helicopter to take some pictures, in an attempt to distract her from her experience. After stopping for an overnight stay 508 miles outside of Washington, D.C., the reporters drink to the sound of gunfire in the night and share thoughts about the day's proceedings. Joel tries to quell his fear with alcohol for the coming event they will witness firsthand. The next day, the journalists reach the scene of a clash between civilians and uniformed men. Journalists, protected by civilians, begin to document what is happening. When one of the fighters is trapped behind a concrete column, his squad throws smoke bombs to get his comrade out. However, behind the smoke screen, he is still hit. He is dragged around a corner already unconscious. Smith and Jesse have been fearlessly recording what is happening all this time. After the firefight, the squad sneaks inside, killing all the military on the way, A wounded military man is killed by civilians in cold blood, not wanting to help the enemy, allowing journalists to film all the horrors of the Civil War. After a successful operation, Joel happily chats with the commander of the civilians, while the others take the military outside, put them in a row, and mercilessly shoot them with a machine gun, which Jesse manages to film. 289 miles to Washington, D.C., the reporters arrive at a refugee camp located in a soccer stadium. Smith brings Jesse lunch. She develops film in a makeshift lab. She shares her experiences before they view the first photos. After spending the night at the camp, the journalists travel through towns gripped by the horror of Civil War. Jesse is in the moment photographing her colleagues, capturing in the footage their emotionlessness, which has become the norm over the years. Their stop is a small town that is more like a feast during the plague, left untouched by the Civil War. The guests stop at a clothing store where Joel asks the clerk if they are aware of the Civil War. She replies that their town has taken on a status of neutrality. At the same time, Smith tries on a dress. Jesse takes a photo as a souvenir, catching the shot with a happy smile. Stepping out for a smoke with Sammy, the woman notices snipers on the roof, making sure neutrality is maintained on the street. Heading out of the colorful town, on their way to Washington, the reporters come across an unfinished Christmas fair and a body lying in the road. They stop and discuss whether they should take this particular route. Sammy suggests they go back and take another road, while Smith looks at a nearby building through the camera. Joel decides to take a chance by driving closer. A sniper opens fire on them from the side of the building. Noticing the snipers in military uniforms, the reporters get close to them while under fire from an enemy gunman. Talking to their new acquaintances, it turns out that they are not aware of who exactly they are having a firefight with. Someone is trying to kill them, and they are trying to kill back. While Jesse photographs the couple, Smith, lying on the ground, admires the flowers. Realizing that the profession of florist would be closer to her, after getting out of the Christmas fair not without difficulty, the reporters continue their journey. Sitting behind the wheel while Joel and Jesse rest, Smith notices a car wobbling along the highway behind them. Sammy offers to slow down, letting the suspicious driver pass, but the pursuers, having caught up with the reporters, drive alongside, wanting to attract attention by signaling. Awakened by the sounds, Joel recognizes an old friend from Hong Kong named Tony, who are also on their way to Washington to watch the death of the president. Overjoyed at the reunion, Tony climbs into their car right as they are driving. Jesse follows the example of his new acquaintance and moves into the next car, after which Tony's driver disappears around the corner. The reporters follow. Smith is concerned that Jesse is missing with some strange man. Tony assures her that everything will be fine, but she yells at him, causing them to almost crash into an oncoming truck, pulling over to the side of the road. After a brief search, the reporters find the car near some farm, without Jesse and the driver. Smith turns onto the road where the co-workers presumably went. The reporters find them in the company of armed men in military uniforms, some of whom are dumping a pile of bodies from the back of a dump truck into one large hole, covering the bodies with an odor compound. Joel is sure nothing bad will happen, since they are clearly protected by press badges. Sammy objects that they will be killed as witnesses. Leaving Sammy behind, the reporters go to the military. Joel introduces himself as a reporter and says that the prisoners are his colleagues with whom they are going to do a story about the opening of a university in a neighboring town. In response, a soldier shoots Tony's driver, killing him on the spot. The conversation immediately goes into interrogation status. Joel says that they are all Americans. The soldier wonders what side they took in the ongoing war. As the interrogation continues, he learns that Joel is from Florida, adventurer Jesse is from Missouri, and Smith was born in Colorado. When the turn comes to Tony, it is revealed that he is from Hong Kong, followed by a gunshot to the chest. Joel asks for the shooting to stop, which only infuriates the racist. Preparing to shoot all the journalists, Sammy appears, driving a pickup truck, which knocks the soldiers into a pit of corpses. Jesse jumps in there, dodging the impact of the vehicle. Once among the bodies, she quickly climbs out of the grave, assisted by Joel. However, there was another soldier. He grabs a machine gun and opens fire on them. Once out on the highway, Joel is sobbing from the experience, and Jesse is wolfing down breakfast on the seat of the pickup truck. Sammy says they need to switch, he's injured and can't drive. Joel gets behind the wheel and speeds off to save his colleague. They speed forward through the forest, engulfed in flames. In the early morning hours, they reach the military base in Charlottesville. But it was too late. Having lost 2 friends in one day, Joel screams, releasing his accumulated fear, pain, and rage. Smith deletes his posthumous photo from his camera, wanting to remember him happy. She finds Joel, who has learned from colleagues that Western forces are already storming Washington, D.C., which means there will be no way to interview the president before the war ends. The next morning, he watches as the convoy advances on Washington. Realizing that the deaths of friends must not be in vain, they ride along to document the final assault. Furious clashes are raging in the city with gunfire hitting local landmarks and soldiers taking cover behind them. Eager to capture everything, Jesse turns off self-defense and almost under bullets for a good shot. But a tired Smith suddenly stops filming, realizing that she is tired of the violence. Photographers follow the unit. Stormtroopers take up positions near the White House for a decisive strike. As they hit a Humvee in front of reporters, Jesse snaps a snap of the burning crew. The tanks arrive to assist in the advance toward the White House. The heavy equipment breaks through the gate and drives into the compound, helping the infantry get inside. At this point, personal guards escort the president out to put him in an armored motorcade. The vehicles break through the troops. However, due to a skid, the limousine rams the Humvee. Looking on as it is shot with machine guns, Smith realizes it is a stunt for a diversion, and the president is not there. She realizes that the head of state is still in the White House and calls her colleagues to follow her. The platoon leader notices this and follows them. The journalists enter the empty White House. The soldiers who entered after them go in search of the president. The photographers follow, snapping beautiful shots along the way. In the press room, the president's secretary offers to discuss the terms of his surrender in exchange for security guarantees. But she is simply shot, unwilling to negotiate. Moving forward, the soldiers slowly sweep room after room. Jesse, eager to get the best shots, follows them without any regard for safety. At one point, she runs out into the hallway to get a vivid shot in the midst of a firefight. Smith jumps out to push and cover the young student. The fallen Jessie manages to get a few shots in when a bullet pierces her older colleague and she falls beside her. Shocked but sated with emotion, Joel calls out for her co-worker, eager to join the moment in history. The separatists are already dragging the cowardly president out from under the table when Joel appears. He tells the soldiers to stop and asks the head of state to say one last thing. He asks them not to kill him. When Joel gets what he wants, the soldiers shoot the president. Jesse captures this historic moment with a series of shots. This is where the movie ends. Thank you for watching.